Hey y'all, this is the first in what's probably going to be a series of three videos for this week for 490 because we're focusing on interviews, and I know that's where a lot of y'all have anxiety, and I don't want to rush through it too much. So look for at least three videos on this. May have to post a fourth later down the line hearing from y'all. But anyway, we're on week 5 and we're going to focus on interviews because in the following week, instead of having slides to review and materials, you'll be participating in a mock interview with me. So, we're going to have an interview review. There's going to be time for you on your own to kind of practice a bit. Because we're not in class, I can't force you to, but if you want to practice with me before the official mock interviews for grades, I'm happy to do that. Just seek me out. I'll cover your interview assignment, and then we'll have reminders, and of course you don't have a closing written assignment. So just to get class going, when you go through the slides, if you want, essentially this is a clip from the British version of The Office. You all won't be doing the interviewing, but it's still probably truly, as it's titled, the most awkward interview ever, and we don't want you to feel that way on your end of things, so we're going to help you not have an awkward interview. And I'm sorry, I have a bit of a cold this weekend as I'm recording these videos. So essentially a job interview, a lot of people think it's you're just talking to someone and trying to get a job, but it's more than that. It's an opportunity for both parties, for you and the employer, to learn more about each other. You need to keep in mind in job interviews that you are there to assess the company and the team as well as they are assessing you. So you want to keep your eyes open for what's it like when you go in. Are people friendly? Are they engaged in work? Is there a system or kind of a process of work and workflow occurring? And just sort of what you're picking up on, just like they're doing the same for you when you arrive. Are you pleasant? Are you courteous? Are you friendly to others? So it's a chance for you to engage and interview the company as well. It's also an opportunity for you to find out if you meet the qualifications of the role. Sometimes on paper, it looks like you definitely meet, you fit the job, but you want to confirm that in the position. It doesn't mean that you need to confirm you know how to do every single thing in the job description, but again, is it the right fit? I once, many, many years ago, applied for a job on campus as the university scheduler, and I thought that meant that I just kept track of people's calendars and sorted out where classes would be, but I didn't really understand the full detail of that job. And as I sat in the interview, I realized this was not the job for me. And I'm fairly certain they realized I wasn't the right fit as well, since I was not offered the job. But even if they'd offered me that job, I had come to the conclusion pretty quickly that I had misunderstood the job posting, and it was 200% not a right fit. And that's going to happen to you sometimes. So it's just as much as an opportunity for you to get to know the company and the role as it is for them to get to know you. And I want you to keep that in mind. Some people think they've failed at an interview if they don't get the job, but every interview is an opportunity for practice. Everybody has to practice at interviewing. So I've got a handy slide of do's and don'ts, and I'm going to go over each one. I don't normally read straight from a slide and do that, but I think these are important to keep in mind. First, you need to be dressed appropriately and groomed appropriately. I feel like this is silly to say, but you would not believe the number of interviews I've helped with where these things did not occur. You need to be showered, smell pleasant but not overwhelming perfume, cologne, or lotion. And you need to be dressed what we call appropriately, professionally. Always go above and beyond in your dress. Even if you think everyone there wears, a polo shirt and khakis, you're going to put on your suit and tie. Guys, girls, you're going to have nice slacks and a jacket, or a skirt and a jacket. A little more conservative for your dress is always the way to go. If you are not sure of what to wear to a job interview, you can ask me, but I say always step up that professionalism. If you don't have some of those pieces, NC State has a really nice closet where you can go get those items for free. Let's say you either don't have them or you didn't bring them to campus, so keep that in mind as well. Know where you're going to interview and how to get there. Especially, I've had people on campus that just get completely lost getting on campus to interview, and I understand that. But this may mean that you need to drive your route to your interview a day ahead of time. Google map it, kind of see what the outside of the building looks like. Do your research ahead of time so that you can do number 3, arrive 10 minutes early. If you get there 30 minutes early, you need to hang out in your car. Do not go into that building until you are 10 minutes early. The way companies stagger interviews, they're trying to avoid you bumping into someone else who's interviewed. So you don't want that awkward situation. And you also don't want to be in an awkward situation where you're literally staring at the receptionist for 30 minutes straight. You want to show that you have a good handle on time management. So 10 minutes early is when you go into the building. Be polite to everyone you encounter. If you pass someone taking out the trash, be polite. The person who checks you in, be polite. Be respectful, engage in conversation with them. 100% of the time, interviewers go back and ask those folks what they thought of you as well, because they want to hire someone who is polite and engaging and respectful of all parties, regardless of their status as an employee. Have a good handshake. Don't have that limp fish, okay? When I say good handshake, though, I don't mean kind of break their hands off and challenge them in that regard, but have a good solid handshake. And on that, we can skip down to number 7, actually, is give them really good eye contact when you're giving that handshake. You want to be positive and polite throughout your entire interview. When they ask you, how's the traffic here? Oh, it wasn't too bad. Or, it was a little rough, but it wasn't a problem. I made it here with plenty of time to spare. Always be positive. You don't want to bring up negative thoughts. I just was part of an interview where someone was super negative the entire time, and even though she had all the credentials, we didn't want that here. If you're going to be negative on your interview, where that you're making your best impression, what are you going to do on a daily basis? During the interview, you need to maintain eye contact with different parties. You may be interviewing one-on-one or in a group, but you need to make eye contact regularly with whoever's there. And then another kind of sneaky little thing is to mirror their body language. So if someone interviewing you is kind of leaned on the table and they've got an arm across the table, you do the same thing. That's sort of this subtle psychological principle. When you're mirroring somebody's body language, they feel more connected to you. So you definitely want to do that. It takes practice. It's kind of one of those final polishing touches. Focus on your answers first, and then you can focus on mirroring body language. But keep it in mind. Respond to questions with evidence, and we're going to talk about that probably in the next video. But you want to be able to say, if you say, I am good with attention to detail, then you've got to give an example of that. Prove why you're good with attention to detail. And if you don't understand the question, ask for clarification. It's totally okay. It actually, impresses us that you're able to ask a question and say, I'm not quite understanding. Could you clarify this part of the question for me? Number 9 is be concise and answer the whole question. We want you to use enough words to answer the question without using too many. Really nice sweet spot would be 60 to 90 seconds. Anything more than that, then we feel like you're starting to kind of ramble on and on. And I know it's nerves, but this is where practicing for an interview and doing those mock interviews with me will help you become more concise. You want to be sure you answer the whole question, okay? So sometimes you get questions that are 2 parts. Don't just answer the first part, answer both parts. Number 10, which I actually find to be very, very critical and important, is to be yourself and be honest. We'll know if you're lying. It might not come out right away. We might hire you and find out later that you don't know this and that software, but we will find out. And be yourself. Because remember that we are looking for a good match on the team. If you get a job because you weren't your authentic self, and they thought you were kind of a little different personality, and then that side comes out later, you're both going to be miserable. And then last but not least, bring questions to the interview. And we will touch on that in a little bit. Some good questions that you can bring to an interview that make you look prepared for the interview. Okay, and then we've got your don'ts. So they kind of mirror the other side, but I want to cover them because they are slightly different. First is you don't want to be flashy or dressed inappropriately. And you want to keep that in mind for your jewelry. Sometimes bigger statement pieces aren't quite right for an interview. So again, make sure you're a little on the conservative side for the interview. Still letting your personality shine, but you want to give an appropriate impression. For your hairstyle, keep something kind of basic and workplace appropriate. I think, that's going to vary. If you're in a more creative setting, you're going to be able to go with something a little more daring, so be aware of your setting. But for the most part, most of you are going to want to go with something a bit more toned down. And then, tattoos have really come up. Again, it's going to depend on your workplace setting. I have a couple, because I got mine later in life, I was a bit more mindful about where I got them. I have one that can be more obvious. So for important meetings, I wear long sleeves, or I wear a cuff of bracelets. If you've already got them, but you think you're going to be interviewing in a more conservative setting, you want to think about what's most important to you, getting the job or, being your authentic self, and where's that line? Do you need to kind of hide them a bit and then you can ease off of it? It's sort of a judgment call, but focus on not being too flashy or inappropriately dressed. Something that's really important that can make or break, honestly, an interview is negative comments about previous employers or other people. You don't want to trash them. When they ask, why are you seeking this job? Why are you leaving your past job? Even though we all know a lot of times it's because you're just not happy where you are, that's not what you say. You allude to the opportunity to grow, to develop a new skill, to be in a different type of environment. Maybe this is more team-based and you were on an individual basis in your current job, but you're never going to say, my boss and I just didn't get along, or those people on my team were really horrible and gossiped a lot. We know these things are reality, but we want to see that you can rise above that in an interview. Don't falsify applications and lie. You will automatically be fired when that's found out. Don't be late. That's a given. You're not going to ask about salary, leave, or vacation unless they bring that up to you in the interview. They shouldn't bring those things up. Occasionally, someone will kind of, when they're interviewing you, will push and ask what you made in your last job, but that's actually illegal. And so if you're asked a question like that, you can say, I'd rather discuss that once an offer's on the table, but my experience qualifies me for this role because, and kind of redirect. But you cannot ask about salary. Don't ask about what kind of vacation leave you get. A lot of you will be graduating and maybe have a post-graduation trip plan. An interview is not the time to mention that. You mention that later when you're getting the offer, and we'll touch on that towards the end of the semester. You don't want to act like you're going to take any old job. A really common question in interviews is, why do you want this job, or what about this job appeals to you? We just did interviews, and again, the ideal fit, she really was a great fit, but she actually said, I'm just tired of working temp jobs and want a full-time job. Well, for me, that was an automatic no. I wanted someone who's passionate about the field. Don't appear unprepared for the typical questions. And that's where practicing over and over is going to help you. And you can also make notes on your resume for things like remembering your strengths, your weaknesses, things like that. And we'll touch on that in another video. Don't go to extremes with your posture. Definitely don't chew gum. And then, I hate that I have to admit it, but you don't smoke or vape in interviews. I know sometimes I see folks vaping in class, and you shouldn't be doing that either, but definitely don't do it in an interview. And if you are a smoker, maybe hold off on having that cigarette till after the interview so you don't come in smelling of smoke. And then if they offer you any water or any kind of beverage, don't slurp on it. We all know the science behind, some people can't stand that sound, but it's also just unprofessional. Okay, so these are our interview do's and don'ts. It feels like a lot, but a lot of this is also common sense. And we're going to move on to what to expect in an interview in the next video. Let me know if you have any questions about these interview do's and don'ts.